As Joe Biden's term in office comes to an end, thoughts in the White House and among the general public have inevitably turned to his legacy. He's had a difficult 4 years in some ways. He was forced to drop out of the presidential race last year to make way for Kamala Harris.
Nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy.
He went on to suffer a terrible defeat at the hands of Donald Trump. So here are 3 things that the Biden administration got right, and 3 things that probably could have gone a bit better.
America, I gave my best to you.
The first thing that people in the Biden administration will tell you has been one of their great successes is the creation of American jobs. In the first 3 years of Biden's presidency, he created 14.8 million jobs. That's the highest of the first term of any president in US history. And over the time that he's been in the White House, unemployment stayed relatively low, which has helped ease some of the concerns about inflation, which we'll come on to later.
Record 16 million new jobs.
Another of Biden's greatest achievements, if you listen to his supporters at least,
we did it, Joe,
is the supply of US weapons and aid to Ukraine. In the time that Biden's been in the White House, $175 billion has been spent partly on the sending of American weapons direct to Kyiv and partly through cash transfers. That's been despite a huge amount of Republican opposition in both the House and the Senate. And Biden has played a significant role on the international stage, where he's brought together other Western allies who are also providing support, including the UK, France and Germany. He sees himself as a man who brings the Western coalition together. Third, Biden does have a good track record on affordable healthcare. At the end of the last Trump administration, 12 million Americans were on the kind of affordable healthcare policies that allow them to afford the support that they need. But by the end of the Biden administration, we can say that 25 million people, more than double, are now on those kinds of policies. And in 2023, we also saw a record low in the number of Americans who don't have health insurance, at around 7%. Biden declared at the beginning of his presidency that that would be one of his major focuses, and he can leave office being pretty confident that he's achieved what he set out to do. Moving on to his failures, there's a lot to say about the Biden administration and things that they've got wrong over the last 4 years, but the number one issue which came up again and again on the doorstep during the presidential election is inflation. Prices across the country have risen significantly. The average amount of inflation in each year across Biden's 4-year term has been over 5%, and Americans often cite the fact that grocery prices and gas prices
it's so expensive
are now too high to afford.
That's what we call Bidenomics.
So that was one of the problems that contributed significantly to the Democrats' electoral defeat last year, and probably to the fact that he was forced to drop out of the race. If you look at Biden's approval ratings, he is now at the end of his term on course to be the most unpopular departing US president in history, and the problems with the economy have a significant role to play in all of that.
It's been a long day.
It's no surprise that Donald Trump's plans to try and cut the amount of tax that Americans are paying and bring prices down have been incredibly popular, even if there's a lot of debate about whether or not they will actually work.
Any questions?
The second major issue during this administration has been the withdrawal from Afghanistan, which is widely considered by foreign policy experts to be a complete disaster.
I'm now the 4th United States president to preside over American troop presence in Afghanistan. 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. I will not pass this responsibility onto a 5th.
In the summer of 2021, Biden ordered that all US troops should withdraw from Kabul, which precipitated the fall of the Afghan government and the rise of the Taliban.
It was time to end this war.
European allies have said that they consider that to be the wrong move, that the US was the linchpin holding that coalition together, and that by removing troops, Biden has condemned the people of Afghanistan to an authoritarian Taliban government. Biden himself still insists that it was the right thing to do, that the number of terror threats faced domestically by Americans hasn't increased. But that isn't the metric that most people are looking at this issue by. They see a pretty bitter end to a very long-running war that America was involved in, with really very little to show for it. The third issue, which Joe Biden will probably come to regret, is the way that he handled illegal migration. Border crossings into the US from South America have increased both in terms of the overall numbers and in terms of the political significance in Washington. They hit 2.2 million in a year in 2022. That's the highest number on record, and the numbers have only come down slightly since then. Meanwhile, pieces of legislation that Biden has tried to pass to bring down the number of people crossing into the US has largely failed, mostly because it's been blocked by Republicans in Congress. For that reason, he doesn't perform well on illegal migration, and it was one of the factors that contributed most heavily to the defeat of the Democrats last year.